What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Who's Reality Cooking Podcast. I'm Audrey Johns, and I'm so excited to have Jarid Altmark from season 2 of Is It Cake? What's up, Jarid? How are you?
Hello, all is well here from sunny Florida.
Lucky, lucky, lucky. Before we got on, we were chatting briefly, and you were rubbing it in my face. How warm is it there right now?
It's like 82 degrees and
Oh my
sunny. It's summer. It's pretty much always summer here. But it's now summer.
We've got flurries outside, so I'm a little jealous. Well, why don't we chat a little bit about Is It Cake? And then I definitely want to find out what you're doing right now and even check out. I was looking at the pictures of your cakes online and I have some questions. So, first of all, just for maybe anyone who hasn't watched Is It Cake or maybe hasn't gotten into season 2 yet, can you explain to all of us in your own words, what's the show all about?
Yeah, so Is It Cake? It's a really fun competition show on Netflix. I would even consider it a game show because you can win tons of money just by making cakes look as hyper realistic as possible. So basically, if you can trick the judges and basically not have them spot out which one is cake, then you can go home with thousands of dollars.
That's so exciting. Yeah, when I was watching it for the very first time, I was shocked at how different it is from other cooking and baking reality shows. It's very unique, it's very high energy. Was it really fun to film? What were what did you do ahead of time to kind of get prepared?
So it's actually really interesting. I hadn't made a cake for like maybe 2 or 3 years before I was on Is It Cake. I mean, I have about like a decade of experience of cake decorating, but now it almost seems like a former life. So basically, before I even auditioned, my friend Riley was just like going on and on about how cool the show is and how I need to be on the show. And then I was looking at the cast and was like, wait, like I know some of these people. And then I was like, well, I'll give it a shot. Like I haven't done a show in a bit. Like boredom always strikes back. It comes back in ways you don't expect. Um, but essentially, like once I was on the show, I mean, for the most part, every single show I've done has been this like crazy, surreal sort of like dream scenario. It doesn't feel real. There is a tinge of like surrealness always when it comes to it. Um, Especially with that many cameras in your face and like you've never been lit that well and like your makeup is done and like it is just a full production where they somehow like introduce you to the cast and it does like somehow feel like family even though you've never really known these people, but thankfully like I did know some of the people on the cast. So like I had known Liz Merrick for like many years. She was one of like the first teachers I ever had, and same for Kayla. Like Kayla is like my girl from cake competitions and conventions and stuff. So it was really cool to be like reunited with some people and get introduced to the whole fam of season 2.
That's so great. I love that you already knew people and it's I have found that with all of us who've done shows like this, there's this really amazing family-like connection almost immediately because very few of us get to roll in the world of food obsessed or cake obsessed people. And so to be in a room with people who love the same thing you love, it's really exciting.
Absolutely.
I love it. I love it. So in the first episode, I love that you made your grandmother's pot and I just tell me about that cuz it's just so cute and I loved the matzah that you made. I just want to hear about it all.
Yeah, so I was really surprised that like right off the bat, like I got to make exactly what I wanted to make because that like really has not been the case on some other shows I've been on. Like I grew up Jewish and it was really cool to be able to provide um like to viewers. Like I got so many like private messages about how like seen and like heard they felt because like they were inspired by like their like grandparents baking, and like I even got reached out to by some people whose parents like were in the Holocaust and how they felt connected to the story of like my nana. So it was really wild to me to be able to provide something like deeper beyond a silly game show about like, is it cake? um, and that was a challenge in and of itself. Like, I chose to purposefully make something that was so important to me. And at the end of the day, like that is probably the reason I got eliminated. Like maybe that's not exactly what I wanted. Like maybe I forgot to play the game. Maybe they didn't catch me saying that on camera though. They definitely didn't. Um, but what was the most important to me and like what aligned the most with my values was having that creative freedom and to have had that opportunity to share my story, my family's story on a global scale, like could not have asked for a better experience. Wouldn't have changed a thing.
I love it. I love it. What was the pressure like having to make a cake that you maybe you've never made before? What did that feel like?
So I feel like most of these TV shows I've been on is either extreme hotel cake decorating or just like crazy cake improvisation. And I mean, when it comes to improv comedy, it's yes and. There are no no's. It will get done some way or another. And obviously, it does take practice and skill to like get to the level to be on these types of shows. But at the end of the day, you just have to be a really good problem solver. And I'm sort of like a very type A planner. So before I even get started, I will make a master list of every single little thing that needs to get done. Order doesn't matter. My brain is all over the place all of the time. So like, who cares about the order? But that little bit of checklist situation really gets me through the competition with some sense of like full breath, not like panic half breaths. Breathing. That's also how you get
Yes.
through it. That's how you handle the pressure, ultimately.
Well, they didn't show you making a list that I can remember. Did you make a list on the show?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, I did. It was the first thing I did because I can't so I chose to make a piece with so many design elements, and I probably used the most cake in that round of any of the other competitors. I thought like, okay, this is a cake competition, like I'm gonna bring it. And because there were so many different elements on the piece, it made it so much more challenging to ultimately balance my time, but also to make sure things dried properly, set properly, because I was using so many mediums as well.
Yeah, and can you tell for maybe somebody who hasn't seen your episode yet, can you tell us about all the different little pieces that you made?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start off with the pot. So like I made my grandma's Dutch oven, like a super bright sort of red orange gradient. And then I put some like kind of rough marks on there because it is vintage. It is loved. Um, and on top of that, I put sheets of gum paste matzah. And matzah is like an unleavened cracker that's used in the holiday Passover. So once again, tying it back to the culture. And then I used modeling chocolate, wafer paper, and gelatin to create some celery stalks that leaned up against the pot. I had to individually hand cut all the little celery leaves, and that took forever. Then I made some cake onions. I used some wafer paper and basically like soaked that down with some food coloring and alcohol to get a really cool kind of like rough, crunchy, papery effect. And then lastly, those baby carrots. And honestly, I think the baby carrots were also a part of the downfall because once again, there's so many things happening in your brain on the table in the piece. And I forgot, oh, baby carrots dry out. Like I should have like dusted them in cornstarch or something. But it's those little like details that like right over your head, you know?
Right over your head. Oh man. Well, I can tell you that here in our household, while we were watching it, I do live in a Jewish household. I didn't grow up Jewish, but my partner is, and he was so excited, and his daughter was so excited to see a traditional family meal done in such a beautiful way. So there was a lot of rooting for you and cheering for you here in our house. So I just loved it. And
Oh, I
my
love
partner too
that.
was like, I wonder if that's gluten free because he's gluten intolerant. I'm like, no, babe, I don't think so.
It was not, it definitely was not, but gluten-free matzah is not bad. I just recently made some gluten-free matzo balls and they like were different but acceptable.
Nice, nice. I have yet to try it because it's like $8 for a pack of the gluten-free matzah. So,
I bet,
he
yeah.
keeps talking me out of it. I'm just gonna make it, whether he wants to or not. Well, talk to us about the onions because It almost tricked me as well, knowing what certain aspects were gonna look like once they came out because I was able to watch you, but you got me with that onion skin. How did you work that? How did you make that?
Yeah, so I use these like half hemisphere cake pans, and it made it super easy because I didn't have to carve any cake, thankfully. Um, After that, I filled it with my mango curd, chocolate ganache, smoothed it out. It didn't have to be too smooth, thankfully. And then I just sort of like did the most messy covering of modeling chocolate I've ever done in my whole life because I'm like, this is all being covered. Like, it does not matter. I need to move quickly. Um, and then I used wafer paper because it is like the most versatile edible medium in terms of like recreating paper finishes, but also just like most thin things in general. So leaves, petals, all the above. Even for like birch wood, like it creates a really like beautiful effect. Um, so I decided to go that approach because gum paste and fondant would never be that translucent or thin. So after like painting it with some alcohol, and like a little bit of glycerin, so it sort of remained a little bit flexible. Food coloring also has glycerin too, but not enough to like really keep it flexible and workable. I just like laid it over my onions, and then I actually popped it in the oven instead of like a dehydrator because I was like, we gotta move. And I was even
Smart.
asking people on the cast, like, has anyone ever baked wafer paper? And everyone was like, no, but like, let me know how it goes.
Were you asking the people sitting watching or the others baking?
What was so cool about the experience is that I really felt like we were all there supporting each other. Like, yes, it's a competition, obviously, but like Cortarius was being helped by Liz, and like Liz was like asking for advice about certain things, and I was like Liz Merrick is asking me about stuff. Like, that's crazy. That is crazy. But felt so supported the whole time. Like we really were there for each other because at the end of the day, like we all want each other to succeed.
I love that. I really felt that too, and it was I think for me, as someone who's done these types of shows, I think that was what made it so approachable and not stressful. Just it was a camaraderie and a family, and I loved watching that aspect of it. Was this the hardest cake you've ever made, or what was the hardest and or most elaborate cake you've ever made?
Ooh, I would say this is my favorite cake I've ever made because it is so personal to me. Um, but in terms of hardest, most complicated, I created a 4 foot tall Christmas tree with dozens of like hand painted ornaments. And it was 75 half sheet cakes. It probably weighed over 300 pounds. Um, for Food Network Challenge, A Christmas Story, season 14. And that was like the hardest cake I have ever made. Um, it was wild, so wild, especially because they didn't even show it in the edit. And I can finally like talk about this because that contract is gone. But my assistant, Brenda de la Corta, who owns Sucre Table in Tampa, Florida, amazing bakery. Like you gotta go if you're ever in Tampa. Um, she cut her hand cutting Rice Krispie treats on like Ralphie's like torso, and Brenda was gone for like an hour and a half. So like that was crazy. The fact that like we finished the piece, not necessarily according to plan, but like the fact that we had a standing cake at the end of the day, that was just like the most insane, unreal experience. I've literally never hugged anyone harder. I was so proud of Brenda and I. And ironically enough, Kayla took that one from me. Kayla won the grand prize on that episode. So it was really interesting to like see her again and
Wow.
ultimately just like be homies, be friends. Cause like, yeah, like fine, we're competition, whatever, goodbye. But like now we're friends, we can hang out.
I love it. In fact, I'm going to be interviewing Kayla as well, which is why I'm looking over here at like my notes of who else I'm going to be. I'm interviewing three of you guys from this season, which is just so
Love that.
exciting for me and so much fun. Well, what about that cake? Do you have photos of it on your website? Where can we see it?
You can probably see it on my Instagram at Jared Altmark. My website is not updated because I am lazy.
Websites are hard. I know all too well. They're very, very hard. But just to kind of take a break in the questions, I do have to mention I went on your website right before we jumped on this call and I saw some Amazing cakes, and the very last one at the bottom just caught my eye so quickly. It was a taco, and it reminded me of this book I used to read to my daughter called Dragons Love Tacos, but it looked a little bit more like it was a Brontosaurus or a dinosaur coming out of it.
Yeah, the Tacosaurus is one of my favorite cakes that I've made. And it was one of the first like sculpted cakes I had ever made for this online competition that doesn't exist anymore, but it was called Threadless. And this website Threadless, I think Threadless, has like tons of just like user generated t-shirt designs, all beautiful graphic design and like art things that you can buy on t-shirts, all the above. And then they had this competition called Thread Cakes. And basically it was like a cake competition to like recreate them. So that Tacosaurus was like a t-shirt design. And then like later on, my friend Sachiko Winbiel of Mimi Cafe Union made me like little like Tacosauruses. And they're still at my like childhood home. They're so adorable. Like I should have them here in Orlando, but I simply do not.
Adds to-do list immediately.
Yes, get the baby Tacosaurus immediately. Yes.
Immediately. Well, tell me, so you've mentioned other shows. Where can everyone listening find you at right now? What other shows can we watch you on?
Yeah, so I've been on a couple, well, actually a few other Food Network shows. So like you can catch me during the holiday seasons. I've done a lot of holiday shows. So like maybe you'll find me on a Halloween Wars season 9 rerun. Maybe you'll find me on a Holiday Wars season rerun. Or Food Network Challenge doesn't really play anymore. Even though like if anyone's listening from the Food Network, like bring back Food Network Challenge. That was the show that like inspired me to start baking in general and just like opened me up to the possibility of like food as an artistic medium because there's some insane legends that came from that show, and the fact that I even got to be on like the latest season was crazy, full circle, surreal. um
Yes, yes, please bring it back.
yeah, please bring it back. But ultimately you can follow me on Instagram at Jared Altmark. I barely post, if I'm being honest. Like I have social media limits on my phone, and like that 20-minute mark goes by real quick when it's all the apps. So like unfortunately you probably aren't going to hear from me, but hey, if I pick it up again, you got to be following me.
Well, hey, you got my message on Instagram, so it's not too far-fetched,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
I got lucky. I got in there under the 20-minute line.
Mhm, you really did. You really did.
Well, tell me, how has participating in both Is It Cake and some of the other shows that you've done, how have they propelled your career? Tell me more about what these shows can do to really get your name out there.
Yeah, absolutely. All of them have been crazy surreal. I keep using that word because like it's a lot of pinch me moments. This summer, I was actually in Israel in Birthright when Is It Cake was released. So I was sort of in this like weird like bubble, like trying to stay off my phone, and like I watched it alone on the bus, and like people knew about it on the trip, but like I was like, I just need to watch it by myself. And then eventually we had a little watch party, but it was like crazy and surreal to then like travel after to Europe with like my best friend Jason, and I was getting recognized. Like that was crazy after As a Cake. Like that hadn't happened after Food Network shows. Like I was like Cake World famous for a little bit. And like you would see me at a convention and I would get stopped and I would smile and I'd be like hello. But like ultimately it was absolutely insane to like be stopped at this like pizza restaurant or like yeah pizza place in Naples, Italy, or like in Sorrento, like on the coast of Italy, and be stopped, and like on a plane from like Israel to Miami, like have a little kid like annoying his mom, being like, that is Jared from Is It Cake? And then like the 12-hour flight ends and he's like running over and he like runs back to his mom, and the mom comes over and he's like, oh, were you on TV? And this is after I'm
Oh, I
like, you
love
know, like
that.
knocked out for 12 hours. Like the candy has hit, candy in quotes. Um, so it was just so surreal. Ultimately, so surreal. The fact that my story is now on a global platform and not just like only rerun on Halloween and like the Christmas season because like that is not who I am. Like that is not authentic necessarily.
No, I love that you got that opportunity, and back to the little kid, I found that most kids are really excited about Is It Cake just because it's so playful and so fun and so approachable. So I think it's great that not only you got to tell your story and be your most authentic self, but for the next generation to be so excited about it because it's such a fun and playful and positive show. So I maybe had to wait a while, but in my opinion, at least, I feel like you got it on the right show. But that's my limited
I
opinion.
agree. I
I'm so glad.
agree. I so totally agree.
I love that. I love it. So, what would be your most fondest memory from the show? And are you still in contact with anyone from the show?
Okay, so all of my fondest memories were not filmed. Like none of them. Absolutely none of them. Because when people started getting eliminated, well, first and foremost, that was new on our season. Like season one didn't have eliminations. Everyone was on the couch, everyone was hanging. They stuck around. But because we got eliminated, we started to join the let's call it the not losers losers club. So the first person in the losers club was Justin, and Justin is my homie from the show. Like we still keep in touch. I still like text him all the time. We send pictures of what we're making because I'm not posting things. So like he's one of the people in my circle that's getting like all the stuff I'm making in the pottery studio and all that fun stuff. Um Also it was so cool because then we got like more and more people in the club. So we started a tradition. When Liz joined the club, we were like, we are getting fried chicken, we are getting a beer, and then we're gonna go out. Like we are gonna go out. We're gonna go to the beach. We're gonna go somewhere. Like we gotta get out of the hotel room. Like get us away from the freezing studio. We gotta go somewhere. So one night we actually went to the Hollywood Bowl and saw one of my favorite bands, Hiatus Coyote. They're from Australia, and they played with a full orchestra. And it was just the most like magical, surreal moment. And I was like, you know what? Like what's meant for you will not miss you because most of like the real core memories from that experience happened after I got eliminated. Yeah, so like after
Quite
that, we still planned even more stuff. We were just exploring the city. We went to the Academy Museum. We were going to the aquarium. We saw movies. Like we really made a whole vacation out of it. Um, like another little secret thing that you can absolutely talk about with Kayla because it was a beyond beautiful day. We took a ferry to Catalina Island while they were filming the finale. Like the time we weren't on the couch, we're on the couch. And that was just like the most amazing day. Our We rented a private cabana. It was just so silly and ridiculous. And we just like sprawled out in the sun. And our waiter's name was Justice. So we like literally got served by Justice. So that felt really like kismet, destiny, like meant to be as well. Um, but yeah, Kayla, Justin, Liz, they're all awesome. I was just talking to Kayla the other day because I'm going on a trip to New Orleans, and I'm like, Kayla, my favorite Cajun queen. Like, what do you have for me? Like, what Rex do you have for me?
what what spots did Kayla recommend in New Orleans? Because I actually grew up in New Orleans. I'm curious.
Nothing yet.
Oh,
She's like real busy right now in terms of like refurbishing and all that stuff. So like I'll get the Rex when I get the Rex. But hey, like if you have any Rex for me, like please. I want like the best food. Like no jokes, like no fanciness. Like I want the yumminess.
well, what I will recommend is Cafe Du Monde. It's
Oh
I
yeah.
was a child when I lived there, so for me, my most core memory is Cafe Du Monde, going there on
Mhm.
Sundays when it wasn't crazy packed back, we're talking the 80s, and getting a chocolate milk because I was only allowed to have it on the weekends and a beignet. But now that I can have the coffee, oh my gosh, it's like a next level on coffee. So that would be my biggest recommendation. When I did go there, I didn't know of any specific restaurants because, again, I was a child at the time, but you have to get red beans and rice. Have to
Mhm.
with the andouille sausage. And I really recommend getting some alligator as well while you're there, just because they fry it
Ooh.
up in little fritters and it is so good. And Like I had mentioned, my partner's daughter is always around, and she asked me about it because she has this laundry list of things that she wants to try, and they're just the most obscure foods, which is great for a little kid. And she was like, "Well, what does it taste like? What does alligator taste like?" And I said, "Like chicken, but just a little fishy." So, but I
Well,
think you'll
as
like it.
a native Floridian and ultimately a swamp person for life, I have definitely munched on alligator before. And I would say, like, yeah, like it's basically like chewier chicken,
Yeah,
100%.
yeah, yeah. Well, we can start our own little club here called the Alligator Club.
Yeah.
Not many people have
Alligator
had
Eaters
it.
Anonymous. Yeah.
I love I love that. I love that. So, is there anything else that you want to share with us? Anything else you maybe want to clear up or talk about from your time on Is It Cake or any of the other shows?
Nothing to clear up. The mess is out there for all y'all to watch. Um, but as of now, like I am really focusing on my mindfulness, like my wellness. I'm really dedicated to like a yoga practice. I'm a part of a pottery studio here in Orlando. It's actually owned like by the city. So it's like a government sanctioned pottery studio with over 300 members, and I'm still getting to like flex my creative muscle. Like I'm in the studio a few times a week, sculpting lots of different stuff. I can grab this one thing,
Yeah.
BRB.
All right.
Oh, in the
Let's
moment of
see.
truth.
Oh, wow. Is that
So basically,
ET?
it's sort of like ET. Yeah, totally. So I'm just making all this like really fun stuff for myself, and I'm having so much fun because yes, these shows are amazing. Like they're a beautiful platform to display your like weird, quirky artistry that like isn't always like publicly celebrated. But it's so awesome that there's so many baking and cake decorating shows now. It's honestly a privilege for real that like we even have an opportunity to share ourselves and our art with the world. Because like cake at the end of the day is the most happy, wonderful thing. It is the center of attention at all life's like best events. So like, of course the world loves cake. Like, of course the world loves Is It Cake? Like there's another season, there's gonna be another season and another season. But being back in the pottery studio, it's just like getting me comfortable again with like failure and like starting over, the beginner's mindset. It's really gratifying. It's not necessarily comfortable, but it's really exciting to be starting in this whole new medium and just like continuing to practice my craft because I missed it. Like ultimately, like cake showed me that I'm an artist. It's not necessarily about the cake, it's any medium. So if you're an artist out there, if you love to draw, like cake can be your medium too, without a doubt. And it's never too late to start over.
I love that. And as you said cake so many times, I'm kicking myself because I forgot my other recommendation for New Orleans. You have to try king cake while you're there.
Oh, yeah, I've heard good things about it.
King
I
cake
have.
is amazing, amazing. And there's all different kinds with different fillings. I loved the lemon one when I was a kid, but the tradition is there's a little plastic baby on the inside. And what it's
Yep.
supposed to be is if you get the baby, you're supposed to be the one who buys the next cake. So it's like this constant revolving business. Like everybody brings them into the office, and it's this revolving thing of king cakes, but they're good. So try to find some king cake while you're out
I
there.
love it. I love it. My good friend Reva Alexander Hawk used to make them, and like hers were so good. Like so
Love
tasty, and
it.
she's been on all the shows as well. But yeah, I don't know. It's so awesome that like not only to be connected to people in the industry, like, who have experienced this shared trauma bonding that not many people can relate to.
Yes.
Um, but it's also just like awesome to know that like other people like are still baking for their loved ones and like people are still inspired to bake. I absolutely love it. Like it deserves all the hype in the whole world.
I love it. I love it. So for anyone who's maybe going to try out for one of these shows, for Is It Cake or even any type of reality cooking or baking show, do you have any words of advice for them?
I think my first piece of advice is don't take it seriously. And I'm going to say that because it is not rocket science. You are not doing open heart surgery. Your career is not defined by one particular moment necessarily. Like, even if you don't win, even if you get eliminated first, like, that is not what the show is about. What is more important is that you feel comfortable, you feel authentic, and you ultimately get your story out there. Because that's step one. Like, you want to be yourself first, and then everything else comes after. So if you want to be someone else, if you're pretending to be someone else, it's going to be uncomfy because you have to be yourself on camera for many hours. You're in that confessional room for more hours, and I would like to admit, sometimes three, all like no breaks kind of thing. So ultimately, you have to show up and not take it too seriously to allow yourself to be as authentic as possible. Um, because if not, you're going to be just a panicky, anxious mess, which you will be as well, 100%. Then, in terms of the interview, like, they just want you. Like, that is all they want. If you smile, if you're funny, if you got a little bit of a personality, if you got an accent, use it to your advantage. Use it to your advantage. Um, and of course, like, not everything is meant for the public. I actually got a degree in public relations after my time on TV. So like 18, 19, 20 is when I did my Food Network shows. And like I was in school for public relations afterwards. And I was like, oh my gosh, like you can really control a narrative. Like at the end of the day, it is strategic storytelling. You can pitch what you want to pitch, you can tell the exact story you want to tell, but ultimately, like, you don't have control of the final edit. So if you're putting your best out there, if you're trying your best, if you're showing up as your best self, that's all you can ask for.
Such great advice. Really, really great advice. So tell us, what are you doing now and where can we see you now and see your work now? I know you're not on social media a ton, but tell us where we can see your work now.
Yeah, totally. So you can follow me on Instagram at Jared Altmark, Jared with an I, JaridAltmark. And then you can also follow my page at Get Bored and Baked. I have some really fun stuff in the works with that, but ultimately it's sort of my new passion project where I just want to get people inspired to bake. I feel like so many people in the world are just so cooped up and honestly lonely. Like there's like literally a loneliness epidemic. And baking has been that outlet for me to put myself out there and like beyond, you know, TV. Like it's how I met my neighbors. It's how I like met some of my good friends. It's how I like show my love to my family. So like ultimately like I want to inspire people to bake. Uh, well, maybe they are baked. So ultimately, like baking is a connection with yourself, that mindfulness that I'm still working on. I'm still, in the process of um, making my own while also connecting with others, the people you love the most, or even strangers.
That's so great. I love to hear all of that. This has been such a fun interview, and I wouldn't have, I now it's pretty obvious that you have the degree after we've had the whole conversation. You handle yourself so well on camera, but you are so much fun to watch. And anyone, if you have not watched Is It Cake season 2 yet, you really, really need to see this amazing cake. One question, did it kind of break your heart when they cut open into it, when they cut into it a little bit? Just
I
because it was your creation?
No, I love when people cut my cakes. Like one time I made a graduation cake for my neighbor and it was a pug that was peeing on a gator, but it had like a headdress because like FSU, they're the Seminole, whatever, blah blah blah. So yeah, it fit. Like, and the gator is the school rival, and it was their dog. And they're like, we're not cutting our dog. And I said, well, I'm cutting your dog because I want a slice of cake.
Oh, I love it. I'm glad. And as a cookbook author, people like will send me pictures of ruined cookbooks and it makes me so happy. So I assume it's on the same note as that. But thank you, Jared. Thank you for taking the time and for being honest and vulnerable and showing up here for us and talking about mindfulness. I absolutely love that. And if you do any other shows or any other work with mindfulness, I'd love to have you back to talk more and maybe even do like a little mini reunion for the Not Losers Losers Club here on the show. That could be a lot of fun.
That would
Awesome.
be a
Thank you.
lot of fun because we have a lot of pictures to share.
All right. Well, hey, let everyone know. I'm ready to schedule it now. It would be a lot of fun. You guys could be our first reunion show, which I'm trying to create here on the podcast as
Whoa.
well. Yeah. Could be fun. All right.
Thank
Well,
you so
thank
much
you
for
so
having me.
much. Thank you. And everyone, please make sure to check out Jared on Instagram. I'll make sure to put his handle down below. And thank you for watching and or listening to the Who's Reality Cooking podcast. We will see you next week with more interviews and fun and stories. Thanks so much, Jared.
Bye.
Bye.